board games, but also one of the key spots these days is Kickstarter. Kickstarter, their main funding source is new board games. And so we're always looking to see what the new thing is, and sometimes we'll be early adopters there, and other times we'll just wait till they come around and see what seems to be playing well. We also there's a set of international board game awards, and we'll always buy those and add to the collection, and just continually keep it fresh.
And what's amazing about that, Kevin, is you said that people actually, there are people who spend time developing games. I mean, are we ever going to run out of games to develop, you think?
No. We actually have a really strong board game and card game craft community in Asheville. There are a number of folks that have nationally, internationally published board games here in Asheville. We have their games as well. We'll host them at Well Played.
Have you ever thought about developing a game yourself?
So we actually have one that ties with us, and it's actually our head game master, Tanner. Tanner put out a game just about a year and a half ago, a card deck building game that's done real well, and in fact, folks can buy it at Well Played.
So that's interesting that if you want to get a game, if you want to introduce a game, one of the things to do, check with you guys as to introducing it to the community?
Absolutely.
How do you make a determination whether it's a good game to have or not?
That's a good question. I think with games, you have to keep in mind that folks want different things out of board games, right? And even with our own collection, you'll see that we've divided it into kind of different categories. We have party games, we have heavy strategy games, we have light strategy games, we have games that are good for kids, right? So what may be a good board game for Kevin might not necessarily be a game for me. And so, I think our perspective is, more is better until we completely run out of space, and then have to take over, another building downtown to accommodate the library. But I think we've just been very lucky to kind of continue to grow it and see what's played and what's not. There are a couple games that have been given to us by designers and stuff that haven't gotten a lot of play or haven't been used a lot. So we'll kind of cycle those in and out of the collection. But by and large, I don't think there is a good game or a bad game. They're just games, I think, that are more popular and less popular.
Is that tough for you to have to retire? Do you ever retire games? Do you ever say that, hey, this game has seen better times?
Absolutely. There's a particular series, will remain nameless, that Cortland and I know well, that seems like a great idea for a board game. It's a different idea, and boy, it is just not. It just does not come off the shelf, and folks, when they pull it, it's just not been something they connected with. So yeah, we pull them off, and we need the space. I mean, partly we have a pretty full space in the collection. We'll have to do some maneuvering to get more out in and more space in the future.
We also retire them for extended service as well. I mean, we have a lot of games in the library that get a ton of play. And these are the popular titles that you probably know, the Catans, the Ticket to Rides, the Pandemics. They get played a ton. So what we try and do is, recycle the pieces as much as possible. And so, if we have 4 mostly complete copies of Pandemic, kill off the 4th, and then you've got 3 completely full copies of Pandemic. So there's always a little bit of a balancing act, too, in terms of kind of salvaging the parts from old games so that you can kind of get the most life out of, the board games that we get a lot of folks through the door, so some of them do get a little bit of wear and tear, so you got to be really mindful of, keeping the collection up to date and in good condition.
What's the most popular game you have?
The one we have to replace the most often is a card game called Exploding Kittens. That gets played so much, we have to replace it every 3 to 4 months. And we have multiple copies, so it's not like it's just one copy that bears. And then it's sort of the new classics are the ones that come off. Catan, Ticket to Ride, Pandemic, Carcassonne, those are the ones. We even have a special place because they get pulled off so much. And then, of course, the classics. And out of that, Monopoly and Life are really the two that get the most heavy play, for sure.
What about somebody who comes in doesn't know how to play a game? How do you deal with that?
Sure, yeah. One thing we wanted to, build into the experience about Well Played was making the hobby more approachable, right? Because you've got folks that, have 100 games at their house, they're very into the hobby, and then you have folks, who maybe just kind of grew up playing, Monopoly with their family. And so we wanted to create an experience where someone could come in off the street and then fall in love with the hobby of board gaming. And so one thing we have at Well Played is we always have a game master on duty. And, Kevin talked about Tanner earlier. He's our head game master. And they're kind of like a game sommelier, maybe, for lack of a better term. And their whole job is to figure out, hey, Blaine, what kind of games do you like? Do you like Yahtzee because you like rolling dice, or do you like Risk because of the strategy? And then try and almost matchmake an ideal game for you based on your interest. And then once they've helped you pick out the game, they'll actually go back to your table with you and walk you through how to set it up and how to play. And then as you kind of continue to play, answer any questions you have.
That's so cool as you mentioned this, a trip down memory lane, like Yahtzee. I haven't played Yahtzee for 60 years, and I still remember it. I wonder if I could still figure out how to play.
Absolutely,
You think I could pick it up?
I'm sure. One thing I meant to mention with our games, when we pull games off, we will sponsor a couple of times a year a board game swap. And we'll invite other folks to bring their board games and trade them off. And if there are games that don't get used, we'll donate those. But also coming up the week after Thanksgiving, we're partnering with Toys for Tots to do part of their toy drive. And, of course, we're going to be focused on board games. So we're inviting folks to bring board games. For every game they bring, they get a 2-for-1 coupon
How
for
cool is that?
the Game Pass. So we're wanting to just stack the place high with board games.
And so that's going to be, again, starting after.
That's the week after Thanksgiving.
And so if you have games at home, and that's it, you raise a really good idea, I think, for folks, because how many people have games at home and they haven't used for 30, 40, 50 years or something, and they can bring them, and you'll take them. What's the oldest game you have?
We've got some games from the late 50s and 1960s. In fact, there are some games we don't put out in the collection. They're collector's items themselves. A real popular one that we've got that's from the 80s and 90s is called Hero Quest. They're hard to get a hold of a complete set. We have a complete game, and so we pull it out. We just did a special event that folks could do reservations for that game over about a week, 2-week period to be able to play it.
And they lined up to play it?
You're right.
What was the idea behind it? Do you remember?
Yeah, so Hero Quest is kind of it's a dungeon crawler game. It was one of kind of the original. Most people are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons. Right. It was kind of like an early, very popular version of that. There's also this hilarious YouTube video of this guy who does a review of the reasons I love Hero Quest, and it's like this kind of viral sensation. So in the last couple of years, it's like kind of come back in the public consciousness as a really fun game.
Well, you're mentioning, games we grew up as a kid, and this, I guess, is the fun part about coming to your place. It's a way to visit your childhood. I guess, do you have different generations people come there?
The best days for us, I love to walk in the shop, and there'll be 8-year-olds to 78-year-olds, and everybody in between. We've got folks that come in, grandparents that regularly, weekly bring their grandkids in. The mayor's kids come in with their granddad all the time. That's a great way to just, a lot of time grandparents and their grandkids are probably not going to connect over video games.
Exactly.
But they can connect really well over regular board games, and parents do the same thing. And so it is not atypical, particularly now that the holidays are coming up. You'll come in and see literally 3 or 4 generations all sitting down at the table together with some great board games.
Yep. Just the generations. Do you ever have just grandparents come in and play, or the folks?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's a group of 4 guys that are probably in their early 70s that live around near downtown, and they come in about every couple of weeks and play. Sometimes they just want to play cards, and sometimes they pull new games off and want to learn a new game.
And so people can play cards at your place as well?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as it's not electronic, as long as it doesn't plug in.
Analog only.
Oh, is that the criteria? Talk about it a little bit, too. I'm thinking of some other things at your place. So you have food as well. Talk about the kind of food you have.
Sure, yeah. We have a robust food program that we, wanted when we were crafting it to kind of evoke the feelings of home and hearth, right? So we want cheesy, gooey grilled cheese sandwiches. We want great desserts. We want a good coffee program. We're in Asheville, so it's no surprise that this town loves craft beer. So we have a great craft beer selection and wine as well for folks who want to have a beverage with their game. So we try to be very intentional and playful with our menu. You can find stuff like M&Ms and goldfish on our menu that are, they're fun. They may not be something you're going to make a meal out of, but it might be a great little, thing to have as you're, playing a game.
And so also, do you have music going at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of music do you play?
We've got sort of just a nice modern background music because we want folks to be able to be focused on their game and with each other, so we don't want that to overwhelm. I mean, even the interiors of our space evoke board games, but we want the action to be focused on the table, not up on the walls or somewhere else.
How many people can come into your place at one time?
We can get almost 100 in altogether. We're one of the bigger restaurants downtown, and one of the few restaurants that a large group can come knocking on the door. If it's a really big group, we hope folks will give us a call and give us a heads up. But, on a weekday night, it's easy for us to get 12, 20 people in. So we get a fair number of particularly adult birthday parties that folks want to come in and have a big group. Now, we can't do that on the weekends. That's really tough for us because we stay really full on the weekends. But during the week, we've got a little bit more play, and we can take a big group in, even if they just give us a little bit of notice.
And just as a positive mention to you folks, that I did that a couple of years ago. I had an adult
That's right.
party. It was a lot of fun because also if you want to do something different, nobody's ever done this before, in town to have a game night or something like that too. Another thought, could people, I don't know if you guys have ever done this, could people borrow or rent some of your games if they want to have a game night at their house?
So we actually, we don't do it in terms of like a game night at the house, but we do, if there are folks that are wanting to host a party, we've got one coming up. There's a group doing a slumber party up at one of the hotels, and it's going to be a fundraiser for one of the local charities, and we're going to go up and host the board games there. And so we can do that. We've done that for a couple of wedding parties where they've wanted us to come in and do that as a fun event or a family reunion.
Because that would really be something different. If you want to get people remembering it, that's the only time you've ever had a pajama party and play games,
Right.
Going back to childhood. You also, which is kind of cool, go out into the community, and I know you do several fundraisers for the community and helping other people raise funds for their organizations. What's that all about?
We've done a number of groups. We get a lot of reach out, and we're always glad to help support. We do a lot of support with the schools. We've got a number of board game groups that have come and wanted to do some special events with us, and we're glad to do that. And then of late, we've been putting a lot of focus on pediatric brain cancer. One of our partners, his third child, she has a brain cancer, and they've been battling that for about 15 months. She's doing well with it. Works with the folks out at St. Jude's and has been battling for about 15 months. She's just a little thing. She's about 5 years old, and so that's brought a lot of our focus to support the work at St. Jude's and the support of pediatric brain cancer.
And so I guess the point is that if anybody has an idea about involvement games, either for their personal use or parties, or they want to help raise funds for their organization, contact you guys?
Absolutely. We should tell you, this summer we had a couple that met at Well Played, and they came and did their engagement photos at Well Played. We were glad to host them and do that.
Is that the first time?
That was our first one, Tomas. Is that that's
Our
the
first well-played wedding.
Yeah.
You mean the first date was at Well Played?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Because we did something similar. My wife and I used to love ice cream, so we had one of the wedding parties, receptions was an ice cream place. It's just we had a lot to it. But how cool is that? So you're coming up with another idea, Cortland. That what a great place for a date. When you think about it, I don't know. Do people see this as a dating place, or have you ever had a singles event there?
We've never had a singles event, but we absolutely think it's a perfect place for a first date or, a date with your partner that you've been with for a long time. We actually we started a couple months ago writing a blog, and one of our recent blog posts were all of the reasons why Well Played is kind of the perfect place for date night. And there's a great group in town called Asheville Date Night, and we're always kind of partnering with them on ways to do kind of date night events at Well Played.
The only bad thing I think about that, though, is if you have two people who are very highly competitive, it could bring out the worst of somebody, where one of the reasons when my nephew was younger, he'd sometimes drive me a little crazy when I'd be playing a game with him and he'd cheat, I'm trying to say, because I guess that's one of the things you get the value out of playing a board game is you learn values that you should have in life, and I guess cheating is kind of discouraged.
Yeah, we don't want the cheaters. One of the things that comes up and that our game masters are great at, some games every family seems to have a different set of rules, and so we'll adjudicate with the rules, but go with what the actual Monopoly being the number one game that people have little
Right.
twists and turns, and if we'll come in and give you the exact Monopoly historic, what the rules have been for sure. One thing to say too on when pairs come in, we mark all of our board games with a little blue dot that play really well for two people. Even if they're made for more than two people, we'll mark and say, oh yeah, this is a great game for two folks. And then we also put little color codes on all of our games that gives you an indication of the strategy. Green's a light strategy and yellow's a medium, and then red's pretty hardcore.
Because you mentioned, in terms of inventing rules, I remember in our family too, Scrabble is another example that, everybody kind of has their own rules. Or do you have Scrabble?
We do, and we learned the hard way with Scrabble, Blaine, that the first boards we got were the standard cardboard boards, and we had some very kind and gentle reminders from some hardcore Scrabble players that hardcore Scrabble players don't play on paper boards. And so we've got one of the competition big wooden Scrabble boards that hold the tiles individually, and you can spin it around.
Well, do you also have, if you want to play Scrabble, the whole discussion too, can you use a dictionary, or what's the rule? It has to be in the dictionary, or somebody says
That's right.
that too. Do you have a dictionary in the place?
We do. We've got a little dictionary. We'll pull it out if they need to do that.
Do people ask for it?
Sometimes, though I have to tell you, with Scrabble folks, they seem to adjudicate among themselves. They're not. They will make the determination without a lot of outside guidance, for sure.
Have you had any competitions?
Yeah, we have tournaments all the time. This month, we're in honor of National Monopoly Month. I think it's this month we're doing a Monopoly tournament. I think it's on the 17th.
17th, yeah.
Yeah, we do it typically on the third Sunday of a month. So if you subscribe to our newsletter or go to our website, wellplayedasheville.com, you can always see what events we have going on.
How cool is that? So all the people want, there's a whole competition for Monopoly? Mm-hmm. So how do you handle if you have they bring in their own boards, or you have enough boards to cover it?
We got enough boards. We got a lot of Monopoly boards.
Yeah. And so that competition is who makes the most money in a certain period of time?
Yeah, so it depends on the game, right? So some games you can do a lot of people at a time. Monopoly, of course, is kind of more limited. So we'll typically cap a tournament at, say, 16 or 20 people, and then we'll run, 4 games concurrently and then do a series of rounds. And over the rounds, either who collects the most money or who places the highest during each of their games, ultimately are crowned the well-played tournament champion of the month, and they'll get a nice little prize pack and love from the well-played team.
In some of those, like Monopoly, we'll set time frames. That'll be what you achieve in a certain time frame. Otherwise, with Monopoly,
Play forever.
We'd be there 6 weeks.
Do some people get really competitive?
Absolutely.
Why are you looking at me, Blaine? Yeah, I mean, it's not really a problem we run into too much. I mean, I think people are there to have a good time, right?
Think of an idea for you guys too. You just hit it. Monopoly is made up. You have a date coming up. You can actually do that for every game. That it's National Scrabble Month. It's National. How about, do you have Shoots and Ladders?
We do. Yeah.
Also, bring back memories. I should bring my daughter there and play Shoots and Ladders.
And some of our tournaments will tie into regional and national tournaments. Like last year, we did one for a game called Pandemic. The goal of that game is you and the other players are trying to prevent the spread of a global pandemic. And so the company that makes it actually sponsors a set of national tournaments. And so we then sent somebody to the regional tournament and went up to the national tournament.
You're mentioning some of these games, and I guess that dates me that I haven't heard of half of them. But that's gaming, I guess, is an evolving industry that's always changing.
Most folks call today kind of the golden age of board games. Since the mid-'90s, there's been a real renaissance in kind of the development of, new games, new titles, new gaming mechanics, new themes, entirely new kind of mindsets around what board games are and how they can be produced. And so, every year there are thousands and thousands and thousands of new games that come out to the market. So it's for folks that love gaming and love being in the community, candidly, it's sometimes a little bit overwhelming with how many great games are being developed every year.
Gaming changed in the U.S. around 2003 when the German game called Settlers of Catan, which was first produced in Germany in 1995, came into an American edition. And pretty much since then, it's been a dramatic change in the way board games. It was sort of a winner-take-all, and then you sort of knock players off along the way. Most modern games don't do that anymore. Everybody plays until the end, and sometimes, like the game Ticket to Ride, you don't even know who wins until you do an assessment at the end. You may think you know who wins, but they've got some secret cards that may have propelled them up in the points.
Clue, still popular?
Oh, yeah, very popular.
You know, I'm just trying to think of these games I played as a kid and should revisit it again. You've been in business now for a bunch of years. What's the proudest part of being in this business for 2.5 years? What do you think? What are you most proud of?
You know, I think there's a lot of stuff that I look to about, just having a sense of gratitude around what we've accomplished, well played. I think for me, it's kind of the weekly reminders. I'll go into, Google reviews, and, being an entrepreneur is tough. There's a lot of stuff you got to deal with. And then you go into Google, and then you just get these amazing reviews of folks who've had the time of their lives, and they're just, overflowing with praise for the concept and the time they had in the experience. And you really think to yourself, wow, like we helped create that, and we helped foster it. And, I know for me, if I'm having a rough day, that's kind of where I go, and I kind of get that encouragement and, energy to kind of keep pushing forward.
I love the fact that everybody's welcome at Well Played. And when you show up to Well Played, you'll see everybody, and whether it's age or gender, race, whatever it is. Folks will be dressed wildly differently from each other, and that's great. I mean, we want to be a comfortable place for everybody in our community.
To recap, in terms of Well Played, first of all, I don't think we mentioned, where are you located?
We're at 58 Wall Street, just down from the station, in fact. So we're at the end of the Wall Street, opposite of the iron sculpture.
And typically hours are when?
We open at noon every day, and then we close at 10 during the weekdays, and then we're open till 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday nights. So we're open for lunch and dinner and everything in between.
And 7 days a week?
We're open 6 days a week during the wintertime, and then we'll go back to 7 days a week once March comes.
Okay.
Tuesday's our close day.
Okay, if anybody wants to get information about Well Played, website, Facebook, what's the best bet?
Sure. Go to our website at wellplayedasheville.com. We'd also love for you to sign up for our new monthly news blast that we send out once a month with great deals and all the updates on all the fun tournaments and events we have going on.
Okay, I'd like to thank both Kevin Frazier and Cortland Mercer for being here again a second time on the Blaine's World Show, and we look forward to seeing you soon at Well Played.
Thanks for having us back.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Real pleasure, Blaine. Thank you.
Okay, as these guys work their way out, I'd like to mention that support for this show and WPVM is underwritten by the Grail Movie House, Asheville's alternative cinema. The Grail Movie House is an independently locally owned three-screen cinema located in downtown Asheville. For current features, visit the Grail website at grailmoviehouse.com or the Grail's social media pages. In addition to mentioning what's in the area, I'd like to mention two shows as our second guests work their way in, and they are, the first is The God of Hell, currently playing at 35 Below through the 17th of November. Very interesting show. I did get to see it, and I think you might like it as well. In addition, at Different Strokes is opening Mixed Fandango. That's a new play by Travis Lowe, directed by Stephanie Hickling Beckman, that opened November 7th, runs through the 23rd, and that's at differentstrokespac.org. And you might want to check that out as well. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my second guests on the Blaine's World Show today. And they are, and I'll try to get the pronunciation right, but it's Hank Eder. I have that pronunciation right, and I have it spelled right this time. It's Michelle pronunciation?
Beitzel.
Beitzel. And they're involved in a couple of different things we'll talk about in a second. But if Facebook Live is working, which I think it is, you can wave to all your friends on Facebook Live, and it looks like some people are watching, so that's a good sign. I should mention that Michelle Beitzel is I love the title, $1 Million Strategist, great title. You have to explain copyright and funnel expert. I have to find out more about that.
Sure.
And Hank Eder is creator of Self-Propelled Marketing Academy. He was also a.k.a. known as, if you can see it on his hat, the PR guy, Hank the PR guy. And let me just ask you both in terms of getting involved in what you do. First of all, I have to ask you, Michelle, I love that title again, $1 Million Strategist. What is that?
Sure. So, $1 Million Email Strategist. I have been working in internet marketing for 15 years or more, starting out as a copywriter. But in the last, I'd say, 4 years, I have headed an email marketing strategy for a company based out of California and have exceeded $1 million in sales for them, which has been really wonderful. So that, earned me the title $1 Million Email Strategist.
I love it. And then talk more about the other parts of the description I mentioned, copyright and funnel expert.
Copywriting.
What is that?
So as I said, I started out as a copywriter, and that evolved, from being a sales copywriter to email marketing strategist, and then that evolved to a funnel expert, meaning sales funnels in the online marketing world, helping people to build sales funnels to automate certain client journeys or product sales, and currently with one of the companies that I work with, I have helped them build out many of their sales funnels, and I also coach their clients in building out sales funnels.
I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed though, because I read this, Hank, and I thought this was going to be, you made funnel cakes, and I thought she was going to bring in funnel cakes for everybody, and you don't have it? No.
I'm so sorry. Next time, I promise.
A little disappointed. And the other question I ask guests, Michelle, is you grew up where?
In Georgia.
Okay, and so as a little girl growing up in Georgia, did you always know you wanted to do this?
Oh my goodness, no. When I lived 2 miles down a dirt road in the middle of nowhere on a farm, I certainly had no idea that I would be working in technology or, online marketing at this point in time. Absolutely, yeah.
What did you want to do?
I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Okay.
I think that probably came from, crawling under the house and digging up arrowheads.
Okay, and so somehow you got into what you're doing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Hank, the same question too, and I love your other title, the PR guy, but you grew up where?
Well, I was born in the Bronx, but I grew up in South Florida, Miami. I actually grew up in Miami Beach, which at the time was like virtual paradise. It was amazing back in those days. Today it's a little more built up and not quite the paradise it once was. However, if you're going to ask me, did I know I was going to be the PR guy? I knew I wanted to be a writer of various kinds. I had a cousin way back who I admired a lot, who was a advertising copywriter for a large advertising agency in Manhattan, and she was an influence on my life. I majored in journalism. I didn't quite immediately go into the advertising aspect of it. I went into the reporting and editorial side of it. And I've been a news reporter, I've been an editor, but over the years I've worked for PR agencies and marketing agencies and of that nature. So I've put all of the various experiences I've had together into my own business these last 10 years.
And so how do you guys meet each other?
I think we met on Alignable, didn't we?
It was either Alignable or it was maybe LinkedIn. We met online.
Yeah, I think it was Alignable because you were one of the first people that I reached out to just have coffee with, and that's how we met. Yeah.
And that's one of the cool things I think about what you both do, is that even though you're in downtown Asheville today, that's kind of an exception. That, and I know Hank pretty well. We've met a couple different places, but for the most part, both of your businesses, a large part out of home. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Or I guess most of your business is.
I do. I work 100% remotely, and I actually live very remotely.
Where do you live?
I live out in Big Pine in Marshall, so I'm down in a valley, where I'm fortunate enough to get satellite internet, but I'm able to work from home.
Okay, and Hank, you do the same thing too? You do a lot of your work out of home?
Yeah, I don't have a brick and mortar location. I work out of my home office. And because of the wonders of technology these days, that's not the issue that it once was. And I do have clients in various parts of the United States, but I also get around a lot more these days and come into Asheville. I go to business networking meetings, and I've built a lot of local business basically through what I call the art of schmoozing. And I think you know about that. Schmoozing, for those who don't know about it, is like talking and in a kind of an intimate way, but in order to basically come up with some kind of an aim, you've got a goal for your schmoozing, and schmoozing is one of those words that comes from the Yiddish into the English language.
Well, we even talked too that hopefully down the road you're going to have a schmoozing workshop or online course or something.
Well, I've got a freebie that's coming out soon that anyone who goes to my Self-Propelled Marketing Academy website will be able to get the Art of Schmoozing as a free download. It's a short video that teaches you how to handle networking meetings like a boss.
That's also going to be the title of your book. You know, you're going to do a book. You know, Trump did the art of the deal. You'll do the art of schmoozing.
The Art of Schmoozing.
Okay, think about that. I'd like you to do that. But, you know, it's funny because, as you're saying, we have a mutual friend, and hopefully he's listening, or we'll get him to watch on Facebook Live, Steve Schulman. And even the fact that how you contacted him or got in touch with him, how'd that come about?
Well, he found me on Facebook because he saw the things we had in common. We both went to Miami Beach High School. He's 2 years ahead of me. But we both went to Miami Beach High School. We had a lot of friends in common. And then he saw that I do PR and marketing, and he had me do some publicity work for his book. And it was a good thing, and I enjoyed meeting Stephen. When he came into town, we got to have lunch together. He's a good guy.
And it's, as you said, it's just kind of the idea of networking or getting yourself out there. You find other clients and other folks. I guess that segues, Michelle, into this idea of you and Hank have this idea of a program you're going to be offering people, or it's a workshop. Mm-hmm. And first of all, what's the name of the workshop?
Stay small to succeed.
Okay, so as I told Hank a couple of days ago, this is like for people under 5 feet tall?
It could be. It could work.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what's the idea behind it?
The idea is, especially in this age of internet marketing where everybody wants to launch an online business and you want to go for the millions, and so many of the strategies out there are built for these multi-million-dollar companies. The idea here is to understand that you can stay small and still succeed and still reach the goals that you want to reach. And in staying small, you actually focus more on quality rather than quantity. And that's more sustainable. I think it's more ethical and it's more responsible.
It reminds me of a book years ago, the concept by Lawrence J. Peter, the Peter Principle. And it's the idea, it's just word for word what you're saying. You don't have to have 100 people. You don't have to have a large organization. And it's another book on the same concept. You can stay small and be very successful.
Right. Paul Jarvis wrote Company of One,
right,
which is the same concept as well, right? It also lends to a certain lifestyle by intentionally staying small. And I think that that's where we kind of need to shift our focus.
Is that one of the things you do in your business?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's also about like staying in your lane, right? Like there are many, many things I can do. It doesn't mean I should. Or by doing so, I stretch myself too thin and I'm no longer living and working the way that I desire.
And Hank, one of the things I've always admired about you seem to do the same kind of thing. In other words, Hank, the PR guy, it's a one-person operation for the most part?
Yes, it is. I do have associates that I work with, but essentially I am a one-person operation. But despite that, I'm a one-stop shop. You know, depending on what you need for publicity needs, you just come to me and I'll get it done for you.
Well, that's also one of the things that impressed me the first time I met you, that you seem to do a lot of different kinds of things. In other words, and just some of them, what are some of the many things that you do?
Well, I got into this originally for the copywriting, online copywriting and print copywriting. But as a solopreneur, I do what my clients want, and people started coming to me wanting websites. So yes, I build websites. I build full turnkey e-commerce websites with shopping carts and payment portals and all that kind of stuff. I do press releases. I do blogging for a number of clients, monthly blogs, newsletters, MailChimp, and Constant Contact for clients.
And I'll ask you the question, and I'll ask Michelle the same question as well, but how do you pick up the skills to do all that stuff?
Well, with me, it started in my early days as a reporter. When I was a general assignment reporter, they would send me out to cover things that I actually knew nothing about going in. So you would do some research, and I'd wrap my brain around it and sink my teeth into it, so to speak, and come up with some pretty in-depth stories about things. And now in this age, since we talked about technology, in this age of the internet, there's very little that I can't find out at my fingertips very, very quickly. So like if I'm blogging for someone who's in a field that I personally have not experienced, I can read a number of articles about it online, incorporate that into my brain, and then come out in a value-added, customer-driven way for benefits that give people added benefits of having read that person's blog or newsletter.
An example is our mutual friend Jensen Gelfond, and you help out with his newsletter. Is that
That is
correct?
correct.
And it's always kind of neat because as I'm reading it, as you're putting it together, I imagine you're learning a lot also, are you?
Oh, definitely.
It's just, so your knowledge base seems to be pretty broad-based in terms of all different kinds of things you know about, or a little something about it, a lot of different things.
Yeah, the jack of all trades kind of.
But you're doing well, though, to your credit. Michelle, the same thing, too. When you were growing up, you said in Georgia, and there wasn't even an internet, and there wasn't all this stuff, and you wanted to dig for stuff. It's funny, when you think about it, you're still doing the same kind of thing, though. You're digging for information
Absolutely.
all the time.
Yeah.
So how'd you learn all this stuff?
Back then, you couldn't go get a sales copywriting degree.
Right.
You couldn't get an internet marketing expert degree. So I'm largely self-taught. And when I began writing copy, it was because I had a natural talent for writing. And so I was self-taught in the aspect of strategic writing for the purpose of sales. I needed something that was flexible, that allowed me to still raise my kids and be there for them, right? And work in between. So over the years, I've now gained some certifications as well, and next week I'm actually attending the Internet Summit in Raleigh, so I do keep myself current. But, when I started out now, I see programs, more programs available, but the reality of it also is that if you were going to get a 4-year degree in, let's say, internet marketing, if there were such a thing, by the time you finished 4 years, it would be irrelevant. So certifications have been the best way for me to go at this point in time. But starting out, there wasn't anything. I just had to study, and experiment. And that's how I did it.
And you not only were experimenting, but you were doing it at the same time
Absolutely.
as well.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
perhaps the best way to learn, going back to your workshop. So you have this idea of staying small. If people come to this, so first of all, who is the workshop geared to? Who would you say? Who should be coming to
Small
this?
businesses, super small businesses, one-person businesses, anyone who's trying to launch, whether you have an existing brick and mortar, but you want to be able to leverage, online marketing to expand your reach, or even if you're just starting out, whether you're a coach, a freelancer, consultant, and you're kind of struggling to find those online strategies because there is a lot of information out there that's a little bit overwhelming and a little bit difficult for many. So if you're just starting out and trying to find some of those strategies that will work for you, I think this is a good fit.
And let's talk about some of the things that people will get who do attend this. So it's a very tight, we knit 3-hour seminar, I guess, 3 hours?
Correct,
And it's
yes.
going to be, I should ask, when's it coming up? This Saturday?
Saturday,
At
10
what
to
time?
1. 10 to 1
And where's it going to be?
at Mojo Co-working Space.
Okay, and if people want to get more information about that, and we'll repeat this at the end, but the best bet is to do what?
StaySmallToSucceed.com.
And succeed, you got to know how to spell it too, right?
StaySmall2Succeed.com.
Yes.
To the number?
No, two, just
T-
T-O.
Succeed,
StaySmall2Succeed.com.
SUCCEED, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, Stay Small Succeed. So you can register online, but what will they find out by coming to the seminar, Hank? Some of the things.
Well, they're going to get some of the techniques through Michelle that some of the bigger operators use, but be able to scale them to fit their business. You can know some of the tricks and tips of the really big marketers, but you could scale them in a way that your lifestyle fits. But they can increase their business, and Michelle mentioned quality over quantity. And then I'm going to share some of what I call the street tactics of getting local publicity, because a lot of local businesses, they struggle for local publicity. And I'll be teaching some things about how they can get some local publicity.
And let's talk about that in a second, but it's like they also talk about, was it Levinson? I think it was, talks about guerrilla marketing. I used to talk about the fact, GUERILLA, and that people, it's very hard to outspend your competition. You could try to, but it's successful. But if you can sometimes, Michelle was alluding to, outthink your competition, I guess that's what you're trying to help people do, if you can.
Well, there is the aspect of that, but there's also the notion of knowing having a roadmap going in, having a roadmap to follow so that they don't have to make a lot of the mistakes that a lot of solo businesses make. and sort of hit the ground running is the idea. If you've got a small business that's either struggling or you're a one-person business, like a consultant, a workshop, a trainer, this is a good fit for you because you'll learn a lot of things that will help you hit the ground running, so to speak, and avoid some of the mistakes that a lot of solopreneurs make.
Give an example of a mistake that a solo person makes.
Well, the first one that immediately comes to mind is spending a lot of money in local media. Because if you call up a newspaper or a radio station, the account executive is more than happy to sell you all the advertising that you want. But when I go to business meetings, I always ask, how many people in this room have spent money in advertising only to see no return? And virtually, I'd say 98% of the people in the room raise their hand. So we want to get them to be able to channel their resources more wisely. And don't get me wrong, there are some opportunities that people can and should use advertising. When and how, and we'll get into some of that.
And the worst mistake I oftentimes see, Hank, is that I'll ask people, how did you get your business? They have no idea. Did you advertise? Did you promote it? Did you go to seminars? Whatever. And they don't even bother asking people, why'd you come to me? And that's just a simple thing that I think people don't do enough.
Yeah.
They just forget it. Michelle, same thing too. So your workshop is going to talk about some of your, I forgot what you called it, 10, what do you call it?
Oh, the 10 Thoughts Method.
Yeah, I love that.
Right,
So I want to know more
right.
about it. Put you on the spot a little bit. You'll have
Yeah.
to come to the seminar to find out more about it. But what's the idea behind that?
It's great. It kind of goes back to something you were saying about just a minute ago, and Hank was as well. We have these multi-million-dollar companies that I've worked with that are spending $50,000 a month on Facebook advertising. That's just not going to work for the small business, right? So we have to take an approach where we're getting more attention because we're relating more to your target audience. And that's where the 10 Thoughts Method comes about, is showing you a way to really tap into the thoughts that your target audience is having so that the content you put in front of them is directly reflecting what they are thinking in terms of, whatever solution they're seeking out that your business might be able to solve or provide an answer for.
Give me an example of how that could be done.
The 10 Thoughts Method?
Yeah.
So let's say you offer, you help somebody quit smoking, okay? And we have an idea as the service provider or the coach or whomever we are as to what they need. But really what I want you to do is focus on not so much as what your client, your potential client needs, but what they're thinking every day. Are they thinking, wow, I really need to find a quit smoking program? It's more like, geez, I wish I could just put this cigarette down, right? Or I want to quit smoking, but I know what's going to happen. I'm going to try for today and I'm going to do well, and tomorrow I'm going to start all over again. So I want you to approach your content and how you speak to your target audience through their thoughts, right? Because when they see those thoughts reflected back to them, when they see that in your content, they directly relate to and say, yes, that's me. That's me. That's the person I want to get help from, because you know exactly what I'm thinking. You know what I'm going through.
Interesting concept. Best way to do that? Do you do that in person? Do you do it on the phone? Do you do it via email?
Typically, in person and on the phone when I work with clients, because I work largely remotely, although I do love working in person because what you get done and what you get accomplished is so much more in person. But I walk you through an exercise, a series of questions to get you in the thoughts of your target audience, and then brainstorming and compiling a list of content ideas, or at least thoughts, right? The 10 thoughts that you can then use across the board, whether it's email, whether it's blogging, whether it's videos, whatever your content is.
Can you do this? And Hank will ask you the same question. Can you do this through Skype or other technology without having to be in person with the person?
Absolutely, right. Yeah, so I often use Uber Conference, an online platform, and it does have video capability as well, so we can be face-to-face either way.
And what's incredible about some of this stuff, a lot of it's free, or it doesn't, have to pay for it.
Correct.
Which is just incredible. I know, Hank, you're moving in that area as well, that you have clients throughout the country. How do you communicate with your clients? if you can't do it in person.
Yeah, I obviously don't fly to different places, but with the wonders of technology, again, there's Google Hangouts, there's Skype. Skype has been a pretty good source because most everybody these days is on Skype, and it's crystal clear. You know, I live in an area where even my landline doesn't sound good, but Skype always sounds crystal clear. It's amazing. So yes, I do work virtually with clients, but it's almost like being with the person when you're face-to-face on one of the electronic platforms. And, you know, I use the technology also. We talked about Self-Propelled Marketing Academy, and at self-propelledmarketing.com, I teach a lot of the the street tactics, because I don't want to interfere with the guy who's guerrilla marketing. I teach a lot of the street tactics that small businesses can use to get their word out at self-propelledmarketing.com.
And so you actually have a course that people can learn this?
Yes, it's an online course that people take at their own rate.
Okay, and then apply it to their own business as well?
Apply it to any business, and it's got probably 7 different techniques they can use. And I think the section on writing press releases alone could be a mini course because it's got 7 different modules in it. And yeah, it's a good way for people to really get the word out there and basically to take control of their own publicity.
Michelle, one of the things that I'm thinking about as you're talking about both the workshop and some of the things you do privately as well, is that these are all good things. It takes a lot of time, though, or does it have to take a lot of time? You know, in other words, especially if you're a solo person, you're doing this all yourself. You can hire you can hire Hank, you can hire a lot of good people, but if you want to do some of this yourself, how do you fit it all in?
It's a good question. And one of the ways that I teach when I work with clients is, as I said, taking these big strategies, right, that these multi-million-dollar companies are using and bringing it down to what works for you. And just like I explained with the 10 Thoughts method, is being able to do something, whether I walk you through that exercise and then you can use it across multiple strategies or platforms, right? So that you're getting more done with one exercise or one task, right? So it's also, I also teach, focusing on one online strategy. So if you're going to do Facebook advertising, great. Let's get your messaging proved there first before you ever consider taking it to YouTube or Instagram or whatever. Because what we see is people start, putting all of their information out there across the board before they've ever proven one thing. And that wastes a lot of time and money, right? And then that gets you get frustrated and you kind of get discouraged. So it is possible to make it doable for just one person. But you do kind of have to put your blinders on and focus in a little bit. But I do share ways to make that much easier and doable.
And Hank, the same question. Is it possible, as you said, you have in your workshop, you can learn how to write PR releases and other things as well. Is it possible for one person to do this all?
Again, they need to focus in on what their strengths are. And although the course that I mentioned has a section on writing press releases, a lot of small business people just don't write their own press releases, but at least it'll give them the ammunition to know if they have somebody else do it for them that person has done a pretty good job of doing it. Yeah, so you need to know when to take it on yourself, and you need to know when you need to outsource. And that's what a lot of small businesses do these days. They outsource. You don't need to take on a bunch of employees, but you could find the resources that you need by outsourcing to trusted other types of businesses.
Let's talk a little bit about that concept, because I think it's really good advice for folks that you can take the seminar on Saturday, and we're going to encourage people to take the seminar or take your online seminar. Michelle, you'll eventually be developing an online seminar, I'm sure. But I think I draw the analogy, it's like how I work with my accountant. I took accounting in school, and I knew just enough to know that I wanted to hire an accountant. I don't want to spend time doing certain kinds of things, And I guess that's what you're alluding to. You can teach, I guess, people basic PR 101, how to write a press release. That's not to say everybody wants to write their own press releases or do it, or how to know who to send it out to. And that's where they come to a professional, and have them do that. Are you going to mention a seminar also on Saturday?
We'll certainly talk about building your resources in your community, people who can do some of these things for you that you don't necessarily want to do yourself. I always encourage you to learn it once, right? Because in order to know what to expect from someone you hire, you have to understand it yourself, right? So I encourage you to learn it once at least, and then decide which parts you want to take on yourself and which ones you want to send out. There's plenty in this day and age, there's plenty of people, there's freelancers, just like, myself being a copywriter, I offer copywriting services. That's, you can check out alabaster-inc.com, which is where I have my copywriting services. But again, it's important to learn it, at least go through it, like Hank's program for the basic PR stuff. Go through it yourself first, understand the fundamentals, so that when you hire someone, if you hire someone, you know what to expect, what you want from it, and how to proceed.
I think that's a really terrific bit of advice, because I'll tell people, even starting their own small business, work someplace for a month, a year, whatever, to see if you even like it. Because people, I guess, if they hire you for copywriting services or Hank, or they come to the seminar, they'll say that they'll like certain kinds of things, but I guess they'll say there aren't certain things they don't like as much, and that's where it might be time to think about getting some help if you want it.
Exactly. And one of the other things when I work with clients that I help them to identify is, in terms of building like an online business, and there's so many different strategies and avenues that you can take, what are your strengths in terms of the how you should best create content? Are you somebody who does really well on video, or are you just terrible at it and don't want to get in front of a camera? Maybe you're somebody who prefers to write. So we look at what your strengths are and which avenues of content you should pursue. Right.
Michelle, if any folks want to get more information about the seminar on Saturday, again, the best bet is to do what?
Go to staysmall2succeed.com and you can get more information there.
Okay, and Hank, where's it going to be again?
It's going to be at Mojo Co-working Space this coming Saturday, November 9th, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay, and a question or a suggestion, if you don't already have it, if they go to that website, they'll find out information about the two of you as well, your background, but do you also have contact information for you at the website?
Yes.
Okay, super. So if you want to find out information, check the website. You can find.
Right,
Yeah.
and you
There's
can
an
find
email.
out. Yeah, and you can find out a little bit more about me if you're interested at hankeder.com. That's EDER, hankeder.com.
Okay, I'd like to thank both you and Michelle for being my guest the second
Thank
half
you.
hour on the Blaine's World Show. Also, I'd like to thank Amy Prisnash, my producer, and my guest the first half hour, Kevin Frazier and Cortland Mercer. Hope to see you all next week.